Well, hey guys, I hope you have been well. I wanted to talk to you a little bit today about something that one of the One Strong Man members and I had a chance to talk about the other day. And it's kind of a list. It's a thing that if we are trying to hope for something out of this program, what it means for me, what it means for you, the people we care about, our families, the positions that we are in, so that when things happen, again, they are simply inconvenient rather than emergencies, right? And One Strong Man is more than just picking up a rifle, learning how to shoot it, though that might be important to some of us. It's also about the gardening preparation and the ability to maybe raise a livestock and to maybe change your dependency on some of the things that are out there in our natural economy that we need to live, right? But we don't want to be reliant completely upon that system. And we've seen that change so many different times in the last few years, whether it was through trucking, whether it was through production, whether it was through waiting on a computer chip or whatever, right? And now we're dealing with fuel costs and the inflation costs and the Fed rate going up, and so all the things that trickles down to being to us. And the only reason, honestly, that's in anybody's mind is just because how it really will affect you, whether that's financially or whether that's the ability to do your business by not being able to get parts or pieces or materials or whatever that is, right? And in your household too. I mean, if you guys right now have big concerns and you're talking about gearing up and saving up and preparing with different tool sets or different products, the ability to get those is maybe diminished, right? And so that's the big thing. You know, one of my brothers a few years ago decided he was ready to make the purchase and to pick up a couple of firearms. And at that time, man, the price had doubled, well over doubled what it was when we'd first talked about it a couple of years prior, and they weren't quite ready for that. But what they did, they paid the price, right? They paid the financial price, and that's the big difference. Is sometimes you're not quite sure what you want to get into, and that's okay. And when you hold off, and when you don't just kind of dive into maybe purchasing the extra foods here and there, or the firearms in this case, or ammunition at one point, right? Whatever that might be for you, if you hold off, that's all right. You'll just probably pay a different price later on, right? And maybe that still works out for you and your family situation, but have that conversation and open it up. Well, anyways, the One Strong Man program, I kind of broke it down to 5 things that I want. The 5 things that I want for you guys, right? To either have or learn or be capable of doing. And it's kind of it's kind of an in-depth because it covers so many others. And I used a marker board so I didn't run off task on this one. But first thing I want you guys to have is, and this is like before, like, man, Russia just drops an A-bomb, right? So the idea was that before my life is interrupted, I want these things to be in place. And I want them for you too. And what they are is the first one, education, right? I want education while I can still get it. Right now, education is free. Education is the easiest it has ever been in history, right? Whether that's through the YouTube channels and people educating you or teaching you their knowledge, or whether it's through like what we've done and brought professionals in and speakers that talked to us at one point about, you know, we had the class on companion cropping, and that gal gave me all her details on companion cropping. That's fantastic, right? That's something that I wouldn't know and I didn't know. And unless we have these educational opportunities, we just won't know, right? And so if the system changes to where those aren't available to us anymore, that's my fear, right? That's my fear. So my desire first thing is education while I can still get it. And I want that for you guys as well. And the second one is training, right? Training before I need to use it, right? So if I have to learn how to till up a garden by hand, I want to be able to do that before it's my only opportunity to do that, right? Like if I have to be trained on how to tighten a fence line, or if I need to be trained on how to work on an engine, or maybe I have to train on using a firearm, right? We talked about that. We did that first firearms class, and a couple of you guys have taken an opportunity to come in and do individual practice. And honestly, if that's something you still want to do, please reach out to me, and we will do that one-on-one, or maybe it's a family situation. I know a couple of you would really like to get out with spouses, maybe, or even children, and do a family shoot, right? And work with each other beyond just standing at a target and taking a shot on a target standing, right? And so if that's something you want to do, that's training. And the idea is that you get that training before you got to use it, right? We did the CPR training, or we did the first aid training, right? The idea is that you learn how to put a tourniquet on properly before you have to put a tourniquet on properly, right? That's part of this whole thing, being a stronger person in our community. The third thing there is equipment, right? I want equipment while I can still find it. That's been a big deal in this last year, right? This last year, 2 years really, but in this last year, there are times when either your materials for your construction or your job or your house or your home or whatever it is, or it's maybe you've decided you need an extra magazine or something like that for your firearm, or maybe for your garden space, you want to go buy a tiller or a new chainsaw or something like that, right? And some of that equipment has been held up and that price either skyrocketed or just is strictly not available, like a new truck right now, right? And so that's the big thing. Your equipment, while you can still find it, that's really important to me to share with you guys, to kind of have that foresight on the things you might need, or maybe someone else can have and we can use as a group if you need it. I mean, a tiller only needs to use like a day and a half out of the entire year, right? And so maybe that's something that you coordinate through your mutual assistance group so that, one, we may not all be spending money on the same thing, but if it's a product that really isn't needed at just one household, we can pay, we can rent, we can use, we can do whatever, right? So those types of things. That equipment, finding that equipment while you can still find it is really important to me. That's part of this plan too. The next one is supplies, right? Supplies while you can still afford it. That's a big one to me. Whether that's stored food, it might be your long-term freeze-dried food if that's something that you're looking into. I could tell you when I bought it was a sweet deal. I got it from a guy who was moving out of town. It was like $600 for like 2 years worth of stored food for like a 25-year lifespan. It was like 3 years into it, right? The guy was moving, didn't want to pack all the boxes. I got a fantastic deal. I would never have spent $3,000 on that package like he bought it from Thrive or whoever it was, or Costco. I can't remember which brand. But it was a great product. In fact, when we had the stay home, we busted into some of that stuff, right? We actually didn't leave the house for like 4 weeks. Right? We didn't do anything, but every once in a while we'd order something from Amazon because that time the knowledge based on how the COVID was spreading was we were so ignorant, right, at that time. And so for us, it was just easier to stay home. We're fine. We have a lot of stored things, and I know a lot of you guys were able to do that too. And hopefully you had toilet paper, right? But the thing is, there's supplies, not just while you can get it, but while you can afford it. Because we know right now those supplies are going up in price and in cost, and the ability to get them is sometimes diminished, right? It might just be part of your tool. It may not be the entire tool. And so that could be hard. I know right now I had a buddy, I just found 2 little scooters, and they needed a carb replaced, and I ordered them. They came right in, right? But my friend ordered one, and it took like 3 weeks, and it was the wrong dang one that he got anyway, and they said they didn't have that one. It was back ordered for like, I don't know, 5 years, right? So supplies, that's a big one. I want you guys to be able to have supplies you need while you can still afford it, while they're available, right? And then the last thing down there, which I think is probably the most vital, is the systems in place before you have to rely on it. And let that one sink in for a second, right? And that might be your gardening situation, right? You have a system that you've practiced. You know how to grow corn. You know what doesn't grow well next to corn, right? You have used your watering system so that you're not out there hand watering everything. Second, your system might be in place where, let's say, emergency occurs, there's no power in your neighborhood, and all of a sudden, 4 days after an earthquake, the water stops coming through because you're hooked to a big water tower that is now out, right? Or they've capped off because of that emergency. And rather than maybe you having a well, and your well might be your backup system. Well, then what's your backup system for that when the power stops? Do you have a generator and a plug-in for just that so you can make that produce water for you? Because if you can't do that, your animals die. If you can't do that, you can't grow your vegetables, right? If this is a long-term idea for you, what are your backup systems? And are they in place? And do they work? And do you know how to use them before you have to rely on them? And that's the tough one, right? And so this is my 5. That's my 5 right there. I'll give you another quick show up of that, right? See if I can get you on the screen. Kind of. It's hard to do. So education while you can still get it. Training before you need to use it. Equipment while I can still find it. Supplies while I can still afford it. And systems in place before I have to rely on it. That's my dream for you guys, right? That's my dream for us. Because I think that as bigger, better, badder people, the ones that want to take care of our friends and family, the ones that want to make it so that emergencies are simply inconveniences. It's important to me. Thanks, you guys. We're going to get together for another meeting here pretty quick, but have a great afternoon.